World War II was a war of guns, tanks, and bombs. But behind the front lines, a different war was being fought. A war in the shadows, with secrets, whispers, and lies. In this hidden battlefield, information could destroy cities. A forged letter could kill or save thousands. And sometimes, a single well-crafted illusion could alter the destiny of nations. What if I told you that one of the most critical victories in World War II wasn't won with a soldier, but with a corpse? This is the unbelievable true story of Operation Mincemeat, a top-secret deception so bizarre, so audacious, and so perfectly executed, it fooled Adolf Hitler himself into rerouting entire divisions of his army. It was a scheme born in a basement, executed on the open sea, and buried in the pages of classified files for decades. A story involving spies, forged love letters, invisible ink, and one very important dead man. Today, we're diving deep into how a briefcase full of lies, chained to a drowned body, helped save countless lives and change the course of the war forever. By the start of 1943, World War II was at a turning point. After years of grueling battles across Europe and North Africa, the Allies had finally won a critical victory: the defeat of General Rommel's Afrika Korps in Tunisia. The German forces were retreating, and the tide of war was beginning to shift. The Allies now stood at the edge of the Mediterranean, looking across the sea to Europe itself. The question was simple, but the answer would change history. Where should they strike next? Strategically, the answer seemed obvious: Sicily. A massive island, sitting at the very crossroads of the Mediterranean, just miles from Tunisia. It served as the gateway into the Italian mainland, and capturing it would open up a clear path to invade fascist Italy and put pressure on Hitler's southern front. But there was a problem, a big one. Everyone knew it. The British knew it. The Americans knew it. And most importantly, the Germans knew it. Even Winston Churchill himself famously said, "Everyone but a bloody fool would know that it's Sicily." And so, the Allies found themselves in a dangerous position: prepare for the invasion, while convincing the Nazis it wouldn't happen. That meant creating a distraction, a lie so convincing it would pull German forces away from the true target. It meant launching a deception so detailed, so believable, and so unlikely that Hitler himself would buy into it. That lie would become Operation Mincemeat. It all began in a small, nondescript office in wartime London. Here, tucked away from the chaos of the battlefield, two men dared to dream up something that sounded more like a spy novel than military strategy. Their names? Ewan Montagu and Charles Cholmondeley. Montagu was a sharp-minded barrister who had traded courtrooms for covert operations in the Naval Intelligence Division. Cholmondeley was tall, twitchy, and wildly imaginative. A man whose inventive mind had already earned him a reputation within MI5. Together, they were part of a secret committee dedicated to deception. Their job? To fool the Axis powers any way they could. And then, Cholmondeley posed a bizarre idea. What if they planted fake invasion plans on a dead body? One dressed as a British officer, with forged identity papers, a briefcase of top-secret documents, and a believable backstory. They would let the body wash ashore in a neutral country, Spain, ideally, where German agents were known to operate. If the documents were convincing enough, the Germans might believe they had stumbled upon the Allies' real invasion plans. It was outrageous, gruesome, and filled with uncertainties. Would the Spanish hand the body over to the Germans? Would the forged papers survive the ocean? Would anyone believe the story? But to Montague and Cholmondeley, those questions weren't obstacles. They were challenges. When they presented the idea to their superiors, many scoffed. It was too strange, too grotesque. But to the British war machine, deception had become a weapon as powerful as any bomb. Even Winston Churchill, known for his bold decisions, approved the operation. The stakes were far too high to ignore any advantage. If the Germans took the bait, if they moved their forces away from Sicily, then the Allies would have a real chance at storming Europe with fewer casualties. And so, what started as a strange idea in a quiet London office would soon become one of the most daring acts of wartime deception ever attempted. Once the plan was approved, the first and most difficult question was also the most macabre. Where do you get a dead body? They needed someone who had recently died, with no family, no connections, and no risk of being identified. And somehow, they found him. His name was Glyndwr Michael, a Welshman who had fallen on hard times. He died alone in London after ingesting rat poison, an apparent suicide. He had no family. No one came to claim him. To British intelligence, he was the perfect candidate. But Glyndwr Michael couldn't go to war, not as himself. They had to transform him into a man who had never existed. They gave him a new identity, Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. Then came the most extraordinary part of the operation, building a life for Major Martin. He wasn't just a name on a uniform. He needed to be real, down to the smallest detail. They crafted an entire backstory. He had a fiancée named Pam. They wrote heartfelt love letters from her, painstakingly handwritten in flowing script, folded and smudged like they'd been carried close to the heart. There was a bank overdraft letter, scolding him for being overdrawn. Receipts from a fancy tailor, a ticket stub from a show in London, a used bus ticket, a bundle of keys in his pocket, a theater program, cigarettes, a pencil stub, a bill for a new shirt. These seemingly trivial items, what spies called wallet litter, were the secret ingredient. Because they made Major Martin feel human, believable, real. Then came the most dangerous part of the illusion: the false documents. Crafted with precision, they contained letters between senior Allied commanders. The letters indicated that the real Allied invasion would target Greece and Sardinia, and that Sicily was merely a diversion. It was a bold bluff, and if the Germans believed it, they might shift their defenses away from Sicily. The forged documents were sealed in a briefcase, chained to Major Martin's wrist. Finally, they dressed the corpse in a full Royal Marine uniform, clean, crisp, credible. By the time they were done, Glyndwr Michael no longer existed. In his place stood a man with a full life, a tragic death, and a mission that could change the world. Major William Martin was ready for his final deployment. In the early hours of April 30th, 1943, a British submarine broke the surface off the southern coast of Spain. It was the HMS Seraph, a Royal Navy vessel with an unusual and secret cargo. Below deck lay the corpse of Major William Martin, or rather, Glyndwr Michael in disguise. The body had been kept cold, packed in dry ice, and stored in a special container marked optical equipment. The crew, unaware of the full scope of the mission, had been briefed only with fragments. But now, in the darkness just off the coast of Huelva, they prepared to carry out one of the strangest orders in naval history. Under cover of night, the submarine crew gently lowered the body into the sea. The briefcase containing the forged invasion plans was still chained to his wrist. They said a few quiet words, then the current carried him toward the shore. Spain was neutral in the war, but it was crawling with German spies. British intelligence was counting on that. They had carefully chosen Huelva because they knew the region had a high concentration of Nazi sympathizers and well-connected informants. And sure enough, it worked. The body was discovered later that morning by a local fisherman, who reported it to Spanish authorities. The Spanish military retrieved the body in the briefcase, and just as hoped, the documents were quietly passed to the Spanish intelligence service. They opened the briefcase, copied the contents, and, behind closed doors, passed them on to the Germans. The German Abwehr, their military intelligence agency, examined every word, every stamp, every signature, and they believed it. The lie had been launched, and soon it would reach Adolf Hitler himself. As the fake documents made their way through the German intelligence network, they finally reached Berlin. At first, German analysts were skeptical, but the details were too precise. The letters felt authentic. The personal effects, the tickets, the bank slips, the love letters, all made Major Martin seem too real to be a mere fabrication. The deception was so convincing that even Nazi Germany's highest command took the bait. At the heart of it all was Adolf Hitler himself. He was under constant pressure from his military commanders. And now, with the forged documents in hand, Hitler believed the Allies would land in Greece and Sardinia, not Sicily. Hitler made a critical decision. He ordered the shift of vital German divisions, including elite panzer units, to the Mediterranean's eastern front to defend Greece and Sardinia. These were the best of the best, Germany's armored divisions, pulled away from the very island that the Allies were actually targeting. Incredibly, Sicily, the true objective of the Allied invasion, was left almost entirely unprotected. The deception worked better than anyone had dared to hope. Now, with Hitler's focus diverted, the Allies had a clear path to launch their assault with far less resistance than anticipated. On July 10, 1943, the Allies launched Operation Husky, the long-awaited invasion of Sicily. The landing was met with resistance, but far less than expected. With most of Germany's best divisions tied up in Greece and Sardinia, the German defenses on Sicily were lighter than anticipated. Despite the rugged terrain and fierce fighting, the Allied forces pressed forward. Soldiers from Britain, the United States, Canada, and other nations fought bravely against stubborn Axis resistance. The battle raged for just over a month, but on August 17, 1943, the Allies had succeeded. Sicily was in their hands. The ripple effects of the invasion were immediate. Italy's fascist government began to collapse. On July 25, 1943, Mussolini was arrested by his own people. The fascist regime fell, and Italy soon switched sides. The road to Rome was now wide open for the Allies. Operation Husky had delivered a powerful blow to the Axis, but it could have been far worse. Without Operation Mincemeat, the Germans would have been prepared for the attack, and the Allied invasion might have been crushed. In the end, the brilliance of a single deception helped shorten the war and saved countless lives. For years after the war, the true story of Operation Mincemeat remained shrouded in secrecy. The full extent of the deception and the extraordinary lengths British intelligence had gone to was not revealed to the public until the early 1950s. When it finally came to light, it shocked historians and military strategists alike. A single dead man had played an unimaginable role in one of the most critical campaigns of World War II. The man who had died as a nobody, whose life was erased and replaced with a fabricated identity, had saved thousands. The grave of Major William Martin, the alias, was marked with full military honors in Huelva, Spain, where his body was found. Today, his headstone still stands, visited by people from around the world who remember the hero who never truly existed. But the true identity of the man beneath the grave remained a secret for decades. It wasn't until the 1990s that the world learned that Major William Martin was actually Glyndŵr Michael, a homeless man who had died of rat poison, an accidental death that led to one of the greatest deception operations in history. Glyndŵr Michael had been nothing, but in his death, he became a hero in disguise. The impact of Operation Mincemeat lived on. It became a textbook example of military deception, psychological warfare, and strategic brilliance. In the years since, it has been studied by spies, military leaders, and intelligence agencies around the world. A simple trick, a dead man's story, had changed the course of the war and altered the fate of nations. As for Major William Martin, his story lives on, not just as a part of the war's forgotten history, but as a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories are won with the most unexpected weapons. Operation Mincemeat wasn't just a clever trick. It was a masterpiece of strategic deception. In a world where wars are fought with tanks, planes, and bombs, it showed that sometimes the most powerful weapon of all is a well-planned lie. It was a story of imagination, audacity, and sacrifice, a reminder that even the most unlikely people can make the greatest difference. The man who never existed, who gave his life for a cause he would never know, helped change the course of a war and shape the fate of nations. Operation Mincemeat remains one of the greatest covert operations in military history, an extraordinary tale of deception, courage, and humanity. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into World War II espionage, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our other videos on the untold stories of history.